Welcome to From Creepin to Preachin. I'm your host, Renee R. White, a proud native Washingtonian, born, raised, and still live here in the heart of D.C. I spent many years of my life in this incredible city, and it's not just my home, it's where my story began, and where my passion for uplifting my community, especially the youth. This podcast is a space where we can have real, raw conversations about life, faith, and purpose, all rooted in the experience of someone who has walked these very streets and understands the struggles and the beauty of life in D.C. Listeners, we're Season 3, Episode 21. Season 3, Episode 21. I like to call this When God Shut Everything Down So I Could Hear Him. When God shut everything down so I could hear Him. Today's episode is about something powerful. It's about what happens when God interrupts your normal life. You see, during this time, my husband was going through something powerful. His mindset was changing after the mission trips and his deep involvement in ministry. Traveling to places like Peru, Ukraine, opened his eyes in ways that he never expected. He came back with new perspective on life. He talked about appreciating things we often took for granted. He talked about how witnessing the faith of people in other countries deepened his understanding of the Word of God. But when God was working on him, God was also working on me. And let me tell you something, family. When God begins to move in a household, He doesn't just move in one person, He begins to shift the entire atmosphere. When God begins to speak when He did begin to speak during this season, I started experiencing moments where God began showing me things about my life. Not just small things, but deep revelations about my purpose, my past, and the next chapters of my life. And when God begins revealing things to you, it can be overwhelming, yes. Because sometimes the things God shows you require change. And sometimes it requires growth. And sometimes it requires something very difficult for many of us. It requires us to be still. Still. Learning to sit still. Me sitting still. Now, if you know me, you know I love to talk. I can run my mouth all day long. But during this season, something interesting happened. God shut my mouth. Closed it. Completely closed it. And I don't mean physically. I mean spiritually. God allowed me to enter a season where I just had to sit quietly with Him. No distractions, no rushing, not trying to control the outcome, just intimate time with God. And that was new for me. It was new for me. Sometimes we think spiritual growth only happens in big moments, like big church services, big church services, or big conferences, or big revivals. But some of the most powerful moments with God happen in silence. When you're sitting alone. When you're in a house, it's quiet. When the phone when it's not ringing. When the television is off. When you're not talking. When you're just listening. And that's what God was teaching me. He was teaching me how to listen. During the quiet season, He began to reveal things to me about new chapters of my life. And let me tell you something. When God begins to reveal your future, it's exciting. But it's also humbling because you realize something important. You realize that life was never really, your life was never really in your control. God had been guiding your entire life this entire time, even when you didn't even realize it, even when you were making the mistakes, even when you thought you were lost, God was still directing your steps. God interrupted my norm. Sometimes we get comfortable with our routine. Wake up, go to work, handle responsibilities, come home, do it all over again. Rinse and repeat. Life becomes predictable, but every once in a while, God interrupts your normal routine. He interrupts your routine. He interrupts your schedule. He interrupts your plans. And when he does that, it's usually because he wants your full, undivided attention. God had to slow me down. He had to quiet my spirit because he had something important to say. Now, here's the part many people struggle with. After God gets your attention, sometimes he makes you wait. And waiting requires patience. And oh Lord, have mercy on my patience, because waiting is not easy, especially when you feel like God has shown you something. When you feel like you're receiving a revelation, but you don't know what's happening. You don't know what's going on or how it's going to happen. That's when faith really get tested. That's when your faith really get tested. Faith means trusting God even when you don't have all the answers. Faith means believing that God's timing is better than your timing. Faith means sitting quietly and saying, Lord, I trust you. Even when you want to move ahead, even when you want to figure it all out for yourself, even when you want to rush the process. But God was teaching me something powerful, something that most spiritual thing you can do is simply be still. While my husband was experiencing transformation through his mission work, I was experiencing transformation through quiet moments with God. He was learning through serving and traveling. I was learning through listening and waiting. Two different journeys, but the same God working on both of us. But that's the beauty of marriage. God can grow each person in different ways at the same time. Looking back now, I realize that season was about alignment. God was aligning our hearts, our faith, our purpose, our understanding of what he wanted for our lives. Sometimes we think growth has to be loud, but some of the most powerful growth happens in quiet season. Now, listeners, I'd like to ask you something. Have you ever experienced a moment when God interrupted your normal life? A moment where something slowed down. And you know God was trying to get your attention? Or maybe it was a season where he told you to just sit still. Or maybe it was a time when he told you to wait. Or it was a moment when he gave you a revelation about your life. If you experienced that, how did it make you feel? Did you struggle with the patience? Did you question what God was doing? Or did you trust the process? Because let me tell you something. Those quiet moments with God can change. It's life-changing. If you're in a season right now, God has you waiting, you're in that holding pattern, don't rush, don't fight, don't try to force the outcome. Because sometimes God quiets your life because he wants you to hear him clearly. And when God speaks, it can change the direction of your entire life. Thank you all for listening to me. I'd like for you to grab a copy of my book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. As you read along, you can see all the twists, the turns, and the triumph unfolding, gaining a deeper understanding of my testimony and life-changing lessons behind every story. Let's walk this path together. Your journey of healing and hope is just one page away. Let's keep this conversation going. I'm excited to hear how you're peeling back your layers and embracing your moment of when God shut everything down so I could hear him. Also, make sure you visit my website, creepinandpreachin.com, for fresh merch, updates, and resources, and information about upcoming episodes. I'd like to thank my producer, McKinley, with Moving in Motion by Mac. See you next week.